Gene Simmons was hitting on my girlfriend, and he asked for her number, and she gave him mine instead because he kind of creeped her out.
Right.
The next day, on my answering machine, it said, "Hello, this is Gene. I'm at the Radisson. Come meet me."
No.
It's been said that if you stop being curious, you stop growing. I'm David Wiley, and I've got questions. This is Dave Wants to Know. Let's dive in.
Well, if you've listened to rock radio in Southern California, you're going to know our next guest. He is a Southern California radio legend, the Morning Stiffy with Stu, Tiffany, and Jimbo. Look who it is!
Yeah!
It's Jimbo Smith.
What's up, Dave? Thanks for having me on your podcast. I don't know what a podcast is. Radio is the future, but good luck with your venture.
Yeah, what's your advice for people who want to go into radio?
Run! Get into podcasting right now.
Yeah, no. So seriously though, for like 18 years, the three of you, Stu, Tiffany, and yourself, just were dominated rock radio in Southern California with stuff I don't know how you even got away with, man.
Oh, I know.
What is that? It was a legacy, man.
Yeah, I always like to tell people everything I got in trouble for in high school, they paid me to do. So something that another company, you'd probably get a visit to the HR office, then we'd get a pat on the back, you know?
That is so bizarre.
So I've never had to really grow up, it seems, you know, because I went from high school, a couple other things, and then radio, and I feel like it stumped my growth. That's why I'm only 5'7".
Well, talking about that, everybody in radio, myself included, has a different story of how they got into it. And I heard a couple different stories, like you were selling shoes in the mall or doing something in the mall, and somebody said, "Hey, you ought to be on radio." Is there some version of that?
Yeah, I was going to San Bernardino Valley College to get into marketing.
Okay.
So I saw on the job board Nintendo booth needs salesmen. And I never, at that time, Nintendo was for the rich kids. I just had Atari, but I figured I could bluff it. So I aced the interview, got the job. I worked a kiosk in front of Foot Locker, the shoe store.
Okay, that's where it is.
And that's where the morning show guy at the time, it was Stu, Marcus, and Samantha in the morning.
Oh.
And Marcus would come to Foot Locker to take his buddy to lunch after he closed a big Nike sale. And he would hang out at my Nintendo booth because you could play it. And he said, "I want you to produce my show." And I said, "I've never been in radio. I don't even know what a producer does."
Right.
And he said, "Well, you basically do everything I don't want to do." And I said, "All right, what time do I got to be there?" And he said, 4 a.m. I said, "I'm coming home at 4 a.m. some days, Dave. That sounds like a terrible job. That sounds like farmer hours." I said, "No." I turned him down 5 times.
Did you really?
I did. And then, I don't know, he was very persistent, and he said, "I'm hosting Monday Night Football at the Safari Bar in San Bernardino. Come down and hang out." I'm like, "All right, I like football. I'll go see him." So I went, and he's hosting, radio host. You've probably seen him at bars.
Right.
During commercials, he's giving away prizes, making people laugh. Guys are coming up, buying him beers. Girls are coming up, flirting. And I said, "You get paid to do this?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "I'll see you tomorrow at 4 a.m. So
that
it
was
beer
it, huh?
and babes that got me into radio, pretty much.
So you started as a producer.
Yeah.
How'd you end up being on air? Were they just going, "This guy's so crazy, we need to get him on"? Or
Yeah, because I would do some characters, or I would do, believe it or not, sometimes radio has staged phone calls. And every time I got a chance to be on the mic, I made sure I had something to say. And all of a sudden, the program director at the time, Rick Shaw, said, you could talk more if you want. And
Oh.
Marcus was more than cool with that. And long story short, I ended up being on the bill with Stu, Tiffany, and Jimbo. I feel like,
So
you know what I feel like right now, Dave?
what?
I'm wearing an old shirt that I got fired from. So I feel like that guy at the McDonald's who got fired, but he loves a uniform. So I bust it out once in a while.
Well, it still fits.
Yeah, thank goodness. Thank goodness.
So how did you and Stu and Tiffany actually, because you mentioned some other morning people, how did you guys end up getting together?
Well, I thought of this. It's a crazy ride. They moved Stu to 9 o'clock, so it was just Samantha and Marcus,
Uh-huh.
and I was a producer still. And that went good for a while. It made a little dent in radio fun. And then, like a lot of radio shows, that one got fired. They fired the entire show, including myself. And
What?
then one day when I went back to the mall and I was going to college, and I get a phone call from Rick Shaw and said, "Hey, we got a new show that's looking for a producer. Are you interested?" So I said, "Oh my God, yeah, I'll give it a shot." So they had four other guys, and they wanted to. They already had their pick. It was Steve and Tiffany at the time.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, I walk in day one. I came in with a bucket, and it said Steve and Tiffany's P Boy, you know. And um, Tiffany told me that as soon as she saw that, she said, "This is our guy right here." So I got
So
on that show, and then they got fired, and then they got rid of Steve, and then they had Stu come back to the mornings with Tiffany with me, and that was only they told us that's only temporary because we're still searching.
right.
And then I got to work with radio legend Gino Michelini.
Ooh, yes,
Um,
sir.
and oh no, wait. Before that was Gonzo Greg from KNAC, who's still doing stuff. I'll give him a plug. Go to
Okay.
knac.com. Gonzo Greg, he was real receptive, and it was called the Big Dumb Show, which I fit perfectly. I got to be
Right.
honest. And they got fired, but they still liked me, so they threw me in promotions. And they said,
Okay.
"Hey, we're bringing Gino Michelini from KLOS." And they said,
Legend.
"Yes,
When I
5 o'clock
grew up, that was
Johnny."
that big voice, Gino
Yes,
Michelini. Yeah.
that's good. That's good, Dave.
Thanks.
Uh, and they brought me in the office and they said, "If Gino likes you, you could be on his show. Otherwise, we're keeping you in promotions." I'm like, "Okay." So I walk in with a Vikings jersey and he's a Niners fan. He said, "Oh, look at that loser." I said, "We beat you a few times, but you got more trophies to cry over than we do." So we hit it off. He said, "Yeah, Jimbo could be on my show." And then he got fired, and the ratings were so good for the temporary of Stu, Tiffany, and Jimbo. They brought us back, and then that's how we came about.
So the chemistry between you three was amazing. It's almost like you could read each other's mind. Was that like an instantaneous thing, or did
Yeah, because when I first moved to California, because I'm from Chicago, I asked people, "Who do you listen to in the morning?" Because Chicago had some awesome morning
yeah,
shows.
yeah,
Steve Dahl, Jonathan Brandmeier, for any of you out there. And a lot of people said Mark and Brian. A lot of people said Stu in the morning. And Mark and Brian wasn't my cup of tea myself. And I listened to Stu and the Crew. And at that time, I was cutting fence pipes for 10 hours a day for a
ugh.
fencing company in Fontana. And I liked him a lot. So when I first met Stu, we hit it off pretty good because I was a fan of
So
Stu.
you already kind of knew what his deal was.
Yeah, he had that huge voice, and I got this like crow boy voice, is what they call. I'm kind of a squeaker. When I get excited, I get like high pitched, you know. And Tiffany, she was from Ohio. So we had that Midwest connection, and we
Right.
both graduated the same year. So we had the same similar upbringing. So it was, yeah, it clicked really quick.
So, and you guys like each kind of had, I don't want to open the curtain too much, but it was a characters.
Stu is like the
Was,
voice of the station. So,
but also
he'd
kind of
come up. He was,
the guy that lives in his garage guy.
yeah, he's the legend hippie because he's
Yeah.
been to, he went to all the shows in the Inland
Right.
Empire. He was on the radio for like 20 something years at that point already. So everybody loves Stu. And Tiffany was like the one who presented the stories. And then I was kind of like the color guy, like throw in my stupid comments and stuff.
So how you guys, some of the bits that I don't think we can even mention here, but what was
I
your
like to say
bedtimes?
we were very similar to Howard Stern, but not as angry. We were more like the
Okay.
boys' locker room. It's like that was
It was very
I
it
always
was
wanted
very
to be
boys
like the
locker room.
Benny Hill of radio.
So you had like the bedtime story, and there was always something about boobs
Yep.
and girls and everything.
Tiff's
How did you?
Diary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and those things were, man, it was cutting. I don't know if cutting edge is the right word, but like you said, most places you get hauled into HR for that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. You guys were getting ratings and getting popular. In fact, what I thought was interesting, your branding early on, you guys almost looked like a band. You
Yeah.
had the really long hair and the poses, the black and white photography. Was that all intentional?
I think so. Stu could play the drums. Tiffany could sing and play piano. And I played CDs out of tune. I got no musical talent whatsoever, but I always wanted to be a rocker.
I personally saw you sing with rock legend Rob Halford one
Yeah.
time in studio. So you don't say you can't sing. You almost hit the
Uh,
same note. And I
yeah,
think he kind of liked you.
that was surreal. That was like, oh my God, because all the music we played, I grew up on. So I love the music, and I felt so lucky and blessed that okay, I don't have the talent to be in a band, but I could play the bands and kind of reap some of the band benefits, so to speak.
So when you guys did these bits, because I know when I was in radio, we usually had to run stuff by the boss before you did it. Did they kind of give you free reign and just say, whatever you do, and then pull you back if it was too much?
Yeah, we had those talks, and most of the most of the time it was approved because I think we kind of did it in a cutesy boys locker room feel that it was always fun. Like we belittled each other. We made fun of each other, but not really so much the listeners or other people, So I think they felt included because they would call and rip on us too, which was kind of fun. But we always had a saying between Stu, Tiffany, and me that no feelings in the studio. If it's funny, it's funny. Don't take it personal. But if it's funny, it's funny.
So that's interesting. So were there ever times though that somebody did take it personal and kind of went, that was a little too far, or
Yeah, a few, and we were friends, so you didn't want to be mean and say, you'd say, I didn't mean it that way. That was kind of like the cartoon version of what I would say. The character in real life, we would say maybe about 80% of that to somebody's face. But there was a few times we'd have to like hug it out, but it never got to a point where anybody was like really angry or like didn't talk to each other or something like that. But
do you guys still in contact with each other?
oh yeah, yeah. I saw Stu right around Christmas time. He's happily retired in a retirement home. And what's kind of cool is he's got his band of brothers in there that used to listen to him on the radio. So those old guys all get together and talk about the Swing Auditorium and the US
Oh yeah,
Festival.
sure.
So, and Tiffany's a school teacher now.
Wow.
It's crazy. Yeah, I always made fun of her because she went to the Ohio State to get it. She got an English degree. It was, and I said, "Wow, you had to go to the Ohio State to get the same job I got working at the mall. Good job, Tiffany."
Where did the ideas come from?
You know what? A lot of them was just we all grew up and listening to radio, so we kind of knew what was entertaining. So we kind of put our flair on it, and we would try anything, And if we always had to think, if two of the three of us laughed at something, it was worth putting on the air,
And how
So
would you know? How would you know when a bit's going well and when you go, we need to bail on this?
Well, I've been the class clown. I've been a goof off. I've played sports, so you kind of had that guy sense of humor, and that was our target audience. So if it wasn't working, we would just call each other out on the air, say that's not funny. All right, good thing this isn't live, even though we knew it was live. We'd say, okay, here's Led Zeppelin.
That solves everything.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody's going to be mad at Led Zeppelin. They'll be bored with morning shows.
So then the whole thing about people would say, KCal rocks. No, you rock. And that became I still do that.
Me too.
I do that.
I get it all the time.
Do you still?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. What's funny is I remember one specific story. I was in the grocery store with wife number 2, and we're at the checkout, and some guy was on a bike outside, and he kept opening the door. And every time he came by, he'd go, KCal rocks. And I go, you rock. He did it like 12 times, Dave. 12 times he did KCal rocks drive-bys. And
it wasn't Stu, was it?
No. Looked like Stu, but it wasn't Stu. And the cashier she goes, do you ever get tired of that? And I said, no. I said, I don't. I said, if they got one good ear and choose to listen to my show, I love them. And one day that will stop. One day you won't get the accolades of being on the radio. So I'm a ham bone, Dave. I enjoy every time it happened. As a matter of fact, this weekend, I live in Las Vegas now. I was in Carnival Court, which is like an outdoor fun concert venue in between the Link and Harrah's. I recommend it. This band called the Whippets, they played all the classic rock. And I walked in with my girlfriend, and there was another couple sitting there, and they go, oh, if you got, because it was crowded, they had 2 extra seats. They said, oh, if you want to sit here, go ahead. So we introduced ourselves, and I go, oh, hi, I'm Jimbo. And he goes, Jimbo, KCal rocks.
No. And how long have you guys been off the air? 7, 8 years?
9 years now, I think.
9 years.
9
and
years.
People
17,
still remember.
I think it was 2017 or 18. We got the axe. So yeah, 7 or 8 years now.
Now, somebody came up to me the other day and mentioned something you guys did around Super Bowl. And I don't know how I do this in a PJ version, but something about who left the largest deposit in the toilet following the Super Bowl. Is what
we call that Super Bowl Monday. And it's funny you say that. I met somebody a month ago that brought up that bit, and I forgot all about it. And I'm going, yeah, that's right.
We mentioned
very classy show, Dave. Very classy.
Oh yeah, it was really classy. We mentioned Rob Halford, and I remember because I worked at the station in the same building, and he was one of my all-time, still is one of my all-time favorites. What were some of your favorite interviews, favorite celebs that you got to see that came in, or even on the radio, I guess? Or
Tommy Lee, Lita Ford, Sammy Hagar, We interviewed everybody in Metallica but James Hetfield. Gene
What, he didn't want
Simmons.
to talk to you guys?
Hetfield, no, Hetfield, he was just scheduled for other interviews.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But here, I got right above me, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
There's me on stage singing with Sammy Hagar. Let me get that right. Sorry about this, folks.
Oh, this is
So close.
This is
There we
almost
are.
live. Wow. Very cool.
Yeah,
Where was that?
That was in Devore.
Now, was that solo Sammy or Van Halen Sammy?
That was solo Sammy.
Yeah.
But Sebastian Bach of Skid Row was great. I mean, everybody. What was kind of cool is we interviewed them kind of as fans because we all were.
Yeah.
So we gave them the utmost respect and put them like on a pedestal that we were just like so honored that they come to our studio in Redlands, which isn't it's out of LA, so they could do LA easily and cover more territory. But we were always very appreciative that anybody would give us the time of day,
You mentioned Gene Simmons, and I remember a story, and correct me if I'm wrong, but were they rehearsing for a tour at like
the
Norton
Psycho
Air Force
Circus
Base?
tour.
And you guys somehow were able to go out and meet them for an interview or something?
Yeah, well, one of them, we got to do it twice. One of them, Gene and Peter came into the studio, and this is a funny story, Dave. At the time, Gene Simmons was hitting on my girlfriend, and he asked for her number, and she gave him mine instead because he kind of creeped her out.
Right.
The next day, on my answering machine, it said, "Hello, this is Gene. I'm at the Radisson. Come meet me."
No.
I should have went, but I didn't. How do we get? Oh, hi, Gene. Hi, Gene.
Do you still have that?
Oh, no, I don't. That was way back. That was like the old cassette answering machines, with the little micro.
So Gene Simmons really was the dog that he kind of is known to be.
It sure seems like it. I'd vote yes on that.
But you weren't offended that he was hitting on your girlfriend?
No, no. Well, first of all, he hits on almost everything. But I figured if I got a girlfriend that looks like he's in Gene Simmons' league, I'm doing all right.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Well, let's go the other way. And you said you'd talk about anything. Were there rock stars or celebrities that you met that were maybe a disappointment, that were not cool? Or
probably the biggest one that was a letdown wasn't a rock star, it was a comedian, Dave Attell. Have you heard of him? Yeah, exactly. No. Dave Attell.
Yeah.
Well, he came into the studio at 5 a.m, which is terrible comic hours, but he may have been up from the night before. And the whole interview, he was taking notes for his upcoming special and looking up at us every now and then, like not even acknowledging us.
Not engaged.
But to be honest, he came back a few years later, totally redeemed himself.
Very cool.
It might have just been a bad day, or he was tired, he had to hang out with us at 5 a.m,
Okay, I got to ask you.
Most rock stars, I've had nothing but positive encounters with rock stars,
really?
To be honest. So I feel very lucky.
That's cool. Was there any extra substances involved in your performances on the air? I mean,
alcohol.
Alcohol. So you would drink on the air?
There was time. Well, sometimes we did when we were supposed to, because we were, I was a sponsor. But Stu and I used to host Monday Night Footballs, and sometimes we stay out a little too late. And on the way in, we'd had to do Tuesday morning. On the way into work, I would buy a 6-pack for Stu and a 6-pack for me, and we would kind of just have hair of the dog just to get through the show, But other than that, we were fueled by beer, baby.
You mentioned the guy that rode the bike back and forth in front of the what is it, the grocery store or whatever,
Yep,
saying "You
Stater
rock."
Brothers, the
Yeah,
Heartland,
yeah,
David.
that's right. And but really, Stu rode his bike to work.
Yeah. He drove all the way in from, we used to call it Stu Kaipa. Now it's known as U Kaipa.
Oh,
And
they changed it. Yeah.
it's right. But he would ride his bike, and it was funny because sometimes, because he'd have a ski mask on because it was cold, and he'd have his backpack, and he'd get pulled over by the cops sometimes, and because they were looking for a cat burglar or a prowler or whatever, and he'd come in all mad, and we'd talk about it on the air, and I would always take the cop's side, I would say, I'm glad they pulled you over. That means they're doing their job. I said, Stu, look at you. I'd pull you over too. You look very, very suspicious. But Stu's credit, I remember one time it was kind of wet and he pulled into the station and he ate it. His bike came out from
Oh,
under him. He came into work and the whole show, he's just dangling his arm. And we're like, Stu, you sure you okay? He's like, yeah, I'll get it checked out after the show. The next day, he comes in with the sling. He totally sprained his elbow and forearm, but he still came to work. But he did the whole show just to get through it, because it was so fun. He was hurting, though. I could tell he
yeah.
was hurting, but we just made it part of the show. It was like kind of like a bit.
Another thing you guys did that I thought was kind of unusual was, and it wasn't necessarily the morning show, but the radio station itself did the Kager.
That's right.
That's the
Yep.
cake out. That's it. Yeah, and you guys hosted it. So, those youngins that are listening back in the 70s and 80s, we used to have parties and there'd be a keg and it was a big deal. And you guys essentially recreated that in the parking lot.
Right. We felt like it was inviting them to our place, like a backyard old school keg party. And we always raised money for a charity. So it was a good cause to raise them,
Right.
So those were the best. We would have cover bands of different themes. This one was the Red Knot Chili Peppers, which I think is a
Yeah.
great name. And I would design the shirts with Jimmy over at Jam Sportswear in Redlands. And this particular shirt, Mark Teague made an animation of us. He used to work for Disney. And
Very cool.
he liked the show so much. He was from Rialto that he, for free, drew cartoons of us.
That is cool. What about
But
you started out as a producer, and I remember you guys had some producers. I think when I started, it was Sack,
yeah,
and I don't know some of the other guys that you
we've
had. They
had
always had,
40, we've had Grenade.
yeah.
We had a ton of interns, like intern Doodle Bop, intern Creepy, just to name a few.
Do you keep
Intern
it
Bright.
keep it track with any of those guys at all, or
Yeah.
did they?
As a matter of fact, I just saw intern Bryce in Redlands around Christmas time too. He's doing good. He's believe it or not, a fitness instructor in San Diego. Producer Kono, he moved on to Sirius XM and KFI, so he's a
Oh,
producer still. He's still in radio, not like
there's
us.
a few. Yeah.
So maybe
So
one day I'll work for him.
let's get to that, because here you guys are chugging along and well, you were there for 18 years, not all of that as Stu, Tiffany, and Jimbo, but a good portion of that. You guys are just jamming along and rocking the empire. Kegers are just packed. You guys have a great rapport with your fans and everything, and all of a sudden the plug gets pulled. What happened?
I'll tell you what they said. Budget cuts,
Uh-huh.
But I was with the station for 26 years myself.
Oh,
And I tell people that, I choose to be grateful instead of angry. And I still think I had 10 years left in me myself. But everybody's favorite show ends up usually getting canceled or runs the course. So we did better than most. So,
did it surprise you though?
oh, yeah. I mean, there was always like talks every now and then, and I think I think sometimes they do it just to keep you under their thumb, so you don't ask for too many raises, you know?
Right.
So like, you should be grateful you have this job, you know? And like, well, yeah, you should be grateful you got such a great show too, but I get it. You know, it's a dance and everything. But I remember the words the words we got pulled in separately. We didn't get
Oh,
fired as a team.
that's interesting.
Yeah, Tiffany got the first axe, and I was looking for her because we had to cut a commercial, and I'm like looking for her. I couldn't find her, and all of a sudden I saw Tiffany walking, and I said, "You ready to cut a commercial?" And she goes, "I don't think we're going to have to."
Oh,
And I said, "Really?" And all of a sudden I heard, Jimbo to the general manager's office, Jimbo to the general. And I'm like, oh man. So I walked over there. I walked in, and our HR lady was sitting over there, and I'm like, I won't say their names, you know. I just
right.
said, "Hi HR." I said, "It's always good to see you when you're in your office, but if you're in this office, something's about to go down, isn't it?" And they sat me down, and he said, "Well, Jimbo, you're being discharged." And I leaned across the desk, Dave, and I said, "Please tell me it was an honorable discharge." And he goes, "How'd I know you'd always be joking, Jimbo?" I said, "Because you never lose your sense of humor." And I turned to our HR girl and I said, "That's today's lesson. Never lose your sense of humor." So I just
You know,
sat back and listened to the budget talk reasons and just took my medicine. And I was like, in my head, I heard everything they were saying, but I was also like, it was almost like a movie, you know, like almost like people talk about like a near death experience. I started seeing all the cool stuff we did, and then
oh,
I walked down to my truck, got my things to leave, and I took them off my preset. And I drove home in silence, and it was raining. It was almost like a baptism of sorts, and I was just like smiling, like, "Wow, what a run! That was a heck of a run right there." And I pull into the driveway, and my garage door was open, and I get out, and I just raise my hands, and I go, "Freedom!" and and my wife Jackie comes out, and she goes, "What'd you say, baby?" I said, "Freedom!" And she goes, "You got fired?" I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Okay, let's go to Vegas." So we
really?
packed up. We drove up to Vegas for 3 days. And the next day I woke up, uh, looked at Facebook, and I got to see the station's announcements. And Dave, what was hilarious is all the listeners' comments.
Oh,
My
yeah.
favorite one was, "Who kills the goose that lays the golden eggs?" So I just laughed and listened, and I saw, you know, them trying to do damage control and everything, you know, say the right things, and uh, it was fun to see that the listeners had our backs, you know,
Right.
and then everything mysteriously disappeared.
So what was weird about that when I heard of it, because when I worked there, because I had a similar circumstance, I didn't react quite as positively as you did, but um, that's for
Yeah,
another
we're right
day.
down
But
the hall from each other, right,
right
Dave?
down the hall, right down the hall, and I got it a couple of years before you.
Yeah,
And same thing. Walked in the room with the HR person, and yeah, and I took it pretty hard.
yeah.
Honestly, it sounds like you. Um, but what's weird about you is we always felt like that morning show was the general manager's pet, that he loved you guys, like
Oh, he did.
literally loved you guys. And then to hear you guys get let go was shocking. Now, like you said, in radio, it happens to everyone, but it was still
Yeah.
shocking to know he had your back so much and liked you guys so much.
Yeah,
Um,
got along great, you know, and it's I'm sure it wasn't easy for him. I'm sure I like to think he probably, I think they could have done things a lot different, but I think he had our back to the very end. And it may have been the owner just said no,
Right,
as
right.
far as
Do
I
you
know. I
still
don't know.
do you have hard feelings after all these years?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
Some days because it's hard when somebody tells you you can't do what you do great anymore. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
And radio's changed over the years. Uh,
for sure.
I try to listen. There's some good morning shows out there, but you know, I got to toot my own horn, Dave. I think we were one of the best, and I can't. The only one I listen to be honest, right now, is the Dan Patrick Show.
Okay.
Because it reminds me a lot of us. Dan Patrick is like the ringleader, like Stu was, and
Hmm.
then he has his cronies, the Danettes, and calls them out, and everybody shares, and they bounce off each other. But other than that, you know what? I just listen to Bruce Springsteen radio every morning to help heal my soul and make me a better human. To be
You
honest with you.
you mentioned your wife Jackie, wife number three. I think you guys always
Yep.
third
Third
time's a
time's
charm.
a charm, as she would always say.
So after you were discharged, you guys kind of started doing your own thing. I think a
Yeah,
podcast and a show and stuff like that.
I actually have this right here.
Yeah.
We did a fun
And,
podcast for a while, and it was funny because I got approached by Big Dave, who was a listener of the Morning Stiffy,
yeah.
and uh, he wanted to do a podcast of Stu, Tiffany, and Jimbo. But with all respect, Stu was done. He did it for 40 plus years. He was ready to
He's
bike
ready
off
to
into
hang it
the
up.
sunset.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Tiffany said, "No, I think I'm done." She got her master's degree and became a teacher because her mom was a teacher. So
Yeah.
she actually used the Ohio State English degree for something.
Hey.
And Jackie and I tried to podcast, and that went really good for a while. And then COVID hit, and they had to shut the studio down. And when COVID hit, her and I, we bought an RV and roamed the earth for 315 days.
I remember that.
And we just kind of did fun podcast stuff on our Facebook.
Yeah.
And we had a great time together. It was a lot of fun, but I wish you better success with Dave Wants to Know podcast.
That's right. That's right. So you and Jackie end up moving to Vegas after the wandering,
Yep.
and she's like a bodybuilder, like actually competing in bodybuilding stuff.
Yeah, she was
And
a bikini fitness competitor.
yeah, and very impressive. And suddenly, to I think everyone's shock, she got sick.
Yeah, she first she was getting sick in 2023 around Thanksgiving time, and she just wasn't able to hold food down. And she finally, she was a Navy veteran, so she went to the VA, and they said, "Oh, you got the biggest gallbladder we've ever seen. We got to take that out." So we thought nothing of it. People get
Right.
their gallbladder removed all the time. So they did a surgery, and everything was going smooth. And we were supposed to come down to California to visit our grandkids and daughters. And she still wasn't recovering well. And I'm like, "Man, baby, I don't think we should go. I think you should go back to the doctor to see what's up. I don't think this is part of the recovery." And they did more tests. Long story short, they did a second surgery, and I'm in the waiting room by myself. The doctor comes out and says, "Okay, we the surgery's complete. She's in the recovery room. We had to give her a colostomy bag because the gallbladder had cancer and spread to the lymph nodes and the bile duct." And I'm like, whoa, cancer. Nobody said anything about cancer before. And So that was a punch to the gut right there because the C word was never
Oh yeah.
brought up. And I'm sorry if this is going too long, but long story short, uh, she passed from it was stage 4 by the time they discovered it, and I lost
It
her
went.
March 30th, 2024.
Yeah. So just in a matter of what, 4 months or so from
Yeah,
diagnosis,
yeah. No, it
and
was
she was
crazy.
young
We
and
didn't.
vital
Yes,
and healthy.
yeah. She just we were the healthiest we ever were, Dave. It was real sad, and we got a lot of love and support from listeners and everything. So thank you so much for that. And Yeah, it was rough, Dave. It was really rough, but like radio, I chose to be grateful instead of angry. I got great support from family and friends. I did grief counseling up here in Vegas every Thursday, and it was weird that how good that felt to tell complete strangers how awesome of a woman Jackie was. You know what I
Mm,
mean?
hmm.
And it was, I mean, because everybody's sharing stories, and I'll never forget this: the priest who is kind of like the main counselor in charge of the group. He
Right.
goes, "I got to be honest, Jim. I've never laughed so much in a grievance group." And I said, "Just so you know, I put the fun in funeral."
Where do so let's talk about that, because here it is. You got fired after a highly successful radio show. You moved to Vegas, try to, get your life uh, on to something else, move on, and
Yeah.
then your wife, who's the picture of health, suddenly passes away, and you keep that positive attitude. Where does that come from?
I give my parents all the credit in the world. My dad was a traveling salesman, and my mom was a hardworking goofball. My grandparents were always fun, and we for better or worse, sometimes we didn't always deal with problems. We accepted them, but just kind of talked a little bit about it and kind of said, "All right, tomorrow's another day," And I grew up with a positive mental attitude, and I know I know that it's been ingrained in my heart for years, and it gets really tough sometimes, Dave. I'll be honest with you, and um, and even before Jackie was sick, because we'd be road tripping, we spent 24 hours together all the time. You talk about everything. And even Jackie then would say, if something ever happened to me, uh, I want you to be happy. And I go, shut up, Jackie. I said, don't say that. She goes, no, I really, really mean that. And I said, well, don't say that. You and I are going to go together in some bizarre accident in the suite in Caesar's Palace. Our kids are going to find us in a compromised position. That's how we're going. So that was my response all the time. And even to the very end, Jackie was positive, super brave, just handled the challenges that she had to go through. And to the very end, she said, Jimmy, I want you happy no matter what happens. And I'll always remember that. And I take that to heart. And that's why every day is a gift, Dave. I just try to stay positive and make the most of it, deal with whatever problems you got to, and just keep on going, you know?
So yeah, what it would be your advice for people who are dealing with hard times? And because I know I went through the losing my job kind of thing. I have not lost a spouse, fortunately, but it's tough. And some days you just like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I can go another day.
Yeah.
how do you, or do you have like advice to people that, how to hang in there?
Yeah. And I know everybody's different, but I'll
Right.
offer what's worked for me. And if it works for you, awesome. Uh, when you can cry, cry. Uh, when you could talk to people, because it's very therapeutic letting it out. We all try to be stoic, like nothing's gonna bust me. My favorite saying was, I think the devil whispered in his ear, uh, "You can't handle the storm," and I responded back, "I am the storm." So it's that thing that keeps you going. And to be honest, when not to get you know too religious on you, but my Stu's ex-wife, DJs have a lot of ex-wives, just for the
Yeah.
record. Yeah. Uh, uh, Kathy gave me this book. It's like a daily affirmation that kind of gets your mindset that, one day I'm gonna be with Jackie again. That's what I believe. I'm not preaching, but this is what's getting me through. And you got to find people, positive people, that will share your grief with you. You're not alone. You're not alone. Unless you lost
Did-
somebody that nobody likes. No, I'm kidding.
so did that spirituality come out of the loss, or was that something that was always kind of there?
It was always something that hovered in my life. I made all my sacraments, and I believed, but and I always like to think that my God has a sense of humor. That's why I got away with a lot of stuff on the radio. And but it's just something that keeps you going and thinks that today's problem isn't that bad, because in the end, everything's going to be beautiful, and you're always going to have problems no matter how prepared you are. I mean, nobody wants to live in a cave. I think you got to get out there and interact with people, and things happen. And the craziest thing, do you remember the movie Planes, Trains, and Automobiles
Oh,
with
sure.
um, there was one time up here in Vegas. I'm a salesman for a decking company, pool decks
Hmm.
and driveways and stuff. We can get in that later if you want, but that ain't why you got me on the show. Um,
Oh, that's really interesting, though.
uh, at the end, I don't know if you remember the end of the movie. You find out that John Candy's character, his wife, actually passed, but he's still talking to Steve Martin like he can't wait to get back. And I was on some sales calls, and it's a lot of couples I deal with. And I was talking about my wife, Jackie, but she was passed at the time. But
Hmm.
you can't go into a sales call crying, you don't want,
No.
So I was still talking as if Jackie was alive. She'll always be alive in my heart. But I got back to the car and I called my brother up and I said, "Oh my God, I'm John Candy in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I'm talking to other people like I'm still married to Jackie, and
Mm.
I was like, if most of the time it felt good. Sometimes you tear up. I'd get in the sales car and bawl like a 13-year-old girl who just lost her cheerleader tournament or something. And but I don't know. It's a lot of, I think, just going through it, feel it. Don't fight it. You got people are way more understanding than you think, especially when you're with the right people. They'll
Interesting.
they'll hear you out and make it, and you feel better once you get through it.
What's the biggest difference between Jimbo, the personality, and Jimbo, the everyday guy? Is there a difference?
Very little, very little, to be honest with you. I'm when I was on the radio, I was a more amplified version of, because I'm entertaining. I got to be, you know, whistles and bells. Let's have a good time. Let's rock.
Right.
But I guess maybe the only difference is I'm more chill than you think when I'm away from the radio. I'm still
Yeah.
fun and I like to be obnoxious. I like awkward situations to see what happens. And, but I think I'm a little more laid back and not so, because in radio, you had to have an opinion no matter what. As soon as Tiffany said something, I'd have to say something opposite. But in reality, I'm not that way. I'll either agree or just like listen instead of thinking, you don't have to have a response, Jimbo. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
So,
but other than that, I'm pretty much the same freak you heard on the radio.
so you mentioned you're kind of working a regular job now. in
Yeah,
Vegas. Any thought of ever getting back into radio? I know you did some stand-up comedy for a while.
right.
Are you still do you still have your toe in the entertainment business?
Nothing as of yet. Nothing as of yet. And a part of me, I gave up stand-up comedy after Jackie passed because she was so supportive. She would always come to the shows, and I could hear her laugh even at my bad jokes.
Right.
And a part of me was like, man, I don't want to be that comic that has a breakdown on the stage because I would miss hearing Jackie laugh. So right now I'm kind of in a hiatus, but I still enjoy it. I go to a concert still. I go to comedy shows, but right now I'm just a hairy dude that sells pool decking and driveway. I put the BAM in boring concrete is what I do, you know. And what's kind of cool is our company does all the Las Vegas pools too. So it's a big company, but I do the residential sales. So I'm popping into people's houses from Boulder City to North Las Vegas and just trying to get them to buy our beautiful product. It's Pebble Stone if you want to check it out if you live in Vegas. But I love it because I get to be in front of people, and there's a lot of retired people out here. Some are from the Midwest, some are from the IE, and I still run into people, and it's fun. I dig it.
If people want to follow you, I mean, do you have a Facebook page or do you have a place that they want? Because I know
Yeah,
you still post lots of fun stuff out there and do crazy
I'm a
stuff.
fun guy, Dave. I'm a fun guy. Yeah, I mean, my Facebook is Jimbo Smith. If you want to check it out, and maybe one day, I think about toying with stand-up comedy again. I love being a guest. Thank you so much for having me on your brand new podcast. And I'll gladly be a guest on anybody's show and talk about anything. But
Awesome.
a part of me, I think I realized with myself doing a podcast, I don't like being the quarterback. I like being the obnoxious wide receiver that's just like, throw me the ball, throw me the ball.
Right.
I don't want to be the one that's in charge of all the other stuff. I'd rather just be the color guy. So if an opportunity comes up, I would give it a shot, but I'm not
Right.
actively seeking. But it was cool that
Well,
you asked me to do this. I appreciate that. I think
well,
it's exciting.
absolutely. Even though we didn't work directly together, I always enjoyed running into you in the hallway, and we could certainly hear you guys all the time down the hall because you're
Yeah.
really loud.
One of my favorite accomplishments is just picture this, people. You got KCAL in the front corner of the building, and then you got
Right.
Cola in the back corner.
Which is kind of
One
an
day,
oldies.
yeah, yeah, and so it was different. Obviously, morning shows, whatever suits your taste. One day, the program director for the oldies station had to build a wall and a door in between our studios because we were too obnoxious. And I was like, yeah.
That's so cool. Jimbo, it's so great to see you.
Yeah, likewise, Dave. Good luck with everything. And I already followed you. I only
Okay.
follow shows that have me on it, for the record.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and I just want to say you rock.
You rock, Dave. Good luck with everything.
All right, Jimbo Smith, thanks for being with us.
And that's a wrap on this episode of Dave Wants to Know. A big thank you to Jimbo Smith for being our guest. If you enjoyed the conversation, make sure to hit the subscribe button and leave us a review. It really does help us grow. Until next time, keep asking questions. I will. I'm Dave, and we'll talk soon.